Someday we'll find it. The rainbow connection. Lovers. The dreamers and me. La da da dee da da do.
Okay, I think that's good.
That was it?
All right, well, on that note.
What a way to start.
Welcome to Life's Greatest Hits. I'm Jason Earle.
And I am Jordan Foley.
Here's how it goes. Each episode, one of us chooses a vinyl. The two of us get together and listen one time through. Then we discuss our takeaways. On this episode, we will be listening to Outside Child by Allison Russell.
Oh, yeah.
And buddy, I am so excited.
Me too. This is going to be a good one. Because
It's going to be really good.
this album is fantastic.
It's fire.
Yeah, it's
And,
very good.
Yeah, so the album is Outside Child. It was released in 2021. This is Allison's debut solo record, but she's been a recording artist for over 2 decades with her bands Poe Girl, Birds of Chicago, which is with her partner JT Nero, who will come up a little bit later, and Our Native Daughters with Rhiannon Giddens, Amethyst Kia, who has been on my show, The Marinade, and Layla McCalla. The record is gorgeous and hopeful, but also heavy. Allison endured abuse by her white supremacist stepfather growing up. Bigotry and abuse are not easy topics to explore on record or, well, anywhere, but doing so is incredibly important if we hope to break destructive cycles. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about this record and Allison's candor when she talks about some of these incredibly difficult issues. Bigotry and abuse are intergenerational traumas. It's not just my story, Allison has said. She's a powerful presence and someone I have grown to love on so many levels. I chose this record because I think it's incredibly important. I feel a connection to it, not just because of the music, but because of the context in which it was released and what was happening in the world and in my life at the time. And because Allison and I shared a very special moment on my show, The Marinade with Jason Earle.
Yeah, you did.
Which I would like to play for you right now.
Where the story is unfolding just musically. My partner is doing a really crazy dance right next to me right now.
I'm sorry. Congratulations, you have 3 Grammy nominations.
What?
Are you fucking kidding me?
Sorry, y'all.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding.
You're joking.
I figured you had some.
You're joking.
Nope. Best strong performance in American album of the year.
What are they? What are the nominations?
Song, Roots Performance in Americana album.
Yeah.
Oh my fucking god. What's happening? What's even happening right now?
This is the wildest. Oh, I'm so glad that this was postponed. I'm so glad that you.
That's because I was late, as usual. Oh, are you kidding me? You're joking.
I'm not kidding. That would be a really terrible
That would be a mean joke. That would be
That'd
too mean.
that'd
He
be
wouldn't
pretty-
do that.
He wouldn't do that to you.
He wouldn't do that.
You have Grammy nominations.
Oh, shit. What is even happening?
I don't know. This is amazing. Your face. His face.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm so pumped.
I have been fortunate to capture some amazing moments on the Marinade. This is up there among the most special. We released the video of that incredible moment on social media. Katie Couric commented on it.
Yeah.
On Allison's Instagram. It reached far and wide, and it was such a beautiful, special moment. And Allison and I did, in fact, meet in person 2 years later when she played Orange Blossom Review in Lake Wales, Florida. It took her a second to recognize me, but as soon as I introduced myself, her eyes lit up, and she gave me this big, warm hug, and we shared this incredible moment backstage at Orange Blossom Review. So I feel a deep connection to this record, not just because it's so damn good,
Right.
and it's so important, but also because I feel like I've gotten to know Allison a little bit, and she's been so gracious to me and the Marinade and all my creative work. So I'm really, really excited to listen.
Yeah, man. I've been really looking forward to this. I did a big deep dive into Allison's music. I've already heard a handful of the songs before. Night Flyer off of this album has been a jam of mine for years now. I just didn't take the full blown nosedive, so I'm really looking forward to listening to it again with you and talking about it. So
Hell yeah! All right, ready to dive in?
yeah, let's do it.
All right.
And just a reminder, folks, feel free to turn it on yourselves and listen to "Outside Child" by Allison Russell while we do the same.
Yeah, highly recommend doing that. Sweet, let's get it.
Hey guys, so over the last couple years, my hat collection has grown, but these wide brim hats I got from Two Roads Hat Company have become my absolute favorites. I am very excited to let you know that I now have a partnership going with Two Roads Hat Company. Head on over to tworoadshatco.com, pick out your favorite hat. They have so many to choose from. They have felt, straw, wide brim, short brim. They have trucker hats. They have beanies, you name it. Be sure to use the discount code Foley15 and get yourself 15% off of your order. Again, that's tworoadshatco.com. Foley15 in all caps will get you 15% off your order at Two Roads Hat Company.
All right.
Wow.
Shoe Buddy, once again.
Yeah, another banger.
Another Shoe Buddy.
Another Shoe Buddy. What an album.
Yeah, man.
I mean, it really delivers
Yeah.
on so many levels.
So,
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't even know where to begin.
I know,
Like,
I know. So let me start just
Yeah.
because I picked this record.
That's
It meant
right.
so much
That's
to me.
how we do it. Yeah.
And I want to just briefly talk about like how much this record, when I listen to it, takes me back to a time in my life when I felt a lot of hope. 2021, when I talked to Allison for the Marinade with Jason Earle, she and I discussed in some detail the fact that it felt at that moment like there was a movement in the right direction in terms of reckoning with race in this country, reckoning with inequality in this country. As we've talked about on the show, things don't feel that way right now. But at the time, it did feel like that. And it was really encouraging to me to re-listen to that episode and think about the moment that we had then. And then also re-listen to this record, which is so full of like reckoning with the past, the very difficult past, the painful past, while also not letting it, like claiming it, right?
Yeah,
and then there's a couple moments I want to talk about at some point in our conversation about where she sort of really is claiming these moments and not allowing them to define her in a negative way, but to say like, yes, this is a part of me, but I've also overcome so much and I've moved forward and I'm doing all these things to work on myself and my community and my family. And the biggest takeaway I have from this record is hope. That's the biggest thing I take away from it. And I think right now I need that shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a sense of hope. It's the album itself from start to finish. For me, it feels light as a feather. Songwriting feels so connected, conjoined, and then you're like in it. I don't know. There's a level of feeling like you are right in there with Allison and the music that she's making. It's very much Allison Russell. And I can say that without even really knowing a whole lot about Allison Russell ahead of time. That, we had discussed this midway through this listen, that her songwriting stands amongst the rest of everything else on this album. Mm-hmm. The instrumentation is so fluid and has a wonderful flow to it. And it has such traditional elements that get thrown back into that we're going to, talk about a little bit further. But the overall, connection is with Allison's songwriting. Her lyrics are poetic and beautiful and sultry and comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
Uncomfortable in topic.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of feeling like I'm at home with this album.
Yeah.
It very much reminds me a lot of albums that my mom listened to growing up. My mom really used music and listening to full albums based off of her mood. And she always wanted to listen to like, soft stuff and acoustic stuff. And this album in particular would definitely have been in my mom's catalog back in the 90s for sure, if it was around at that time.
Yeah. Well, there's something you said there. I think it's quite the feat that she's able to bring us on this journey in talking about sexual assault, pedophilia.
Yeah, like heavy
stuff. Reckoning with your identity as a queer person, like all of these things that she's dealing with,
Yeah.
that she's able to take these impossible topics and use that poetry as well as the music to bring you along for the ride and sort of put you in that place of empathy. That's another thing that jumps
to make
out,
it
right?
to make it feel personal.
Yeah.
I think the personal to have a in songwriting in general, I try to not write a song for the people, but my hope is that I write a song that connects with people. So I like it first, but I at least want other people to enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
She, Allison had the ability to bring somebody into her world and into her past and almost make you feel like you went through it too. But it creates a sense of beauty in the horror, in the sorrow and the hardships. It's so familiar. I think that was one of the things that really stood out to me the most, was that this album just feels familiar.
Man, and that's incredible, right? I mean, you are a heterosexual cisgender man from Pittsburgh.
White dude with a beard.
White dude with a beard. I am a white dude with a beard from Kentucky. And yet this black woman from Montreal who has gone through things that you and I have never
tough shit
imagined going through.
Real hardships.
And yet the word you used was familiar.
Yeah, and it's not, and I think it's not because of the content itself. I mean, when you hear it, you're hearing her lyrics, there's a lot of sadness in there, and there's a lot of, like you said, hope at the same time of having gone through that. The way that, she talked about this on your episode, was to get through and get past beyond the hardships that she experienced. She had to find hope, things to be hopeful in.
Yeah.
Things to be hopeful for, things to work towards.
Yeah.
Being ambitious and looking forward rather than looking behind. And like you said, that's a really difficult task. It's hard to accomplish when what you've been through is so deep and traumatic.
I think about perseverance in my own life. Not that I've had just like a perfect life, but relatively speaking, I've been pretty fortunate, and yet I've had plenty of hardships in my life. And I think about what I've had to do to dig deep and persevere, and not only persevere, but then to be able to make art about it.
Yep.
I mean, it took me over a year to process my big breakup and write anything about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you're in it, you can't really do that.
Right.
And that's not even close to the level of pain that she's going through. Not
Sure.
that it's a competition, but like to be able to write so eloquently and to make it familiar to people who are not walking in your shoes.
Sure.
To bring them into that world, while also, again, I want to come back to this point because I think it's really important, while also providing hope. Like there's such a hopeful feel to the whole record.
Yeah, there is.
And that's incredible.
I do want to point out, though, from what you just said, you talked about pain and to be going through that type of traumatic experience. And still being able to connect to people. I think pain is familiar. Pain is a tolerant, is something that we have to go through at some form or capacity. All of us have fallen and scraped our knees at some point when we were children. All of us have had our heart, not all, you would like to, I would imagine that we all have had our hearts broken.
In some way.
In some way or shape or form, our bodies have had to mend.
Yeah.
Scars stick around to remind us of the pain that we had once gone through.
Yeah.
It's like a badge of honor. That's how I've always looked at it. And so I think that might be very well be why I connect with sad music in general. Sad songs that are like breaking your heart. I love it because it makes me feel validated.
Yeah, less alone. Yeah.
Yeah. And so especially with Allison, like, and you said, like we're just two white dudes, like we don't get, like we haven't been through we're not women who have been abused
We're
or
not queer.
yeah, exactly. And yet, I think we were both raised on, you have to find empathy in the people that have to go through some harder shit than you do.
Yeah.
And there are people out there who haven't been brought up in that way.
Yeah.
And so it allows us to have some sort of empathy, understanding, sympathy, can't even imagine, but because of our own individual pains or the things that we've had to go through, life is all about being tarnished and coming out of it, and moving forward into the next phase to be able to continue on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we just got real heavy on that.
Yeah, well, I think, because I think the record begs for you to, right?
Yeah.
It begs for you to get heavy and then also to get through the muck and to come out the other side stronger, more empathetic, more hopeful. And I think that's why, I've just about worn out my copy.
Yeah, you did. It skipped.
It skipped a
this
few times.
record, guys, folks. It skipped about 4 times, and that's real cool. That's a cool sign. I admire that. Because it shows that this is one of your favorite albums. And you said that, you told her that in your episode.
Yeah, I mean, talk about life's greatest hits. I mean, especially now, having looked back, this was 4 years ago I recorded with her. Not quite 3.5. It'll be 4 this November that I recorded with her, and it's crazy to think how much my life has changed, how much the world has changed since then, and yet how much this record still lands for me and is really beneficial. I'm curious which songs, we talked about it a little bit while we were liesting. Which songs really stand out to you?
Absolutely. I did say earlier that Night Flyer has been on my Spotify playlist a handful of times. I really, really enjoy that song. It always comes back around, and there's something that I pointed out with this song in particular, to reference, and I'm sure Midnight Rider, the term is way beyond just an Allman Brothers song.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I hear, "Hey, I'm a midnight rider," I get right back to a nostalgic core memory of listening to Midnight Rider with my dad in the truck. You know what I mean? Or like, man, remember when you were working maintenance out in the fields at Montverde while you were working maintenance over the summers and just cutting grass, and you're just listening to like the classic rock radio station and they played like Midnight Rider, like that sentimental, like, man, just like, I remember that being like a calm time in my life where I'm like, well, I have no worries right now. I'm just cutting grass.
It's a fun connection.
And so I say that because I think it's always really cool, even if it was unintentional on Allison Russell's part. She's bringing in elements that relate to other people by hearing words like that and phrases like Midnight Rider. I always find that very cool. I know that some folks look at, songs about like, what was the Chainsmokers, where it's like, oh, you're in your Range Rover in Colorado smoking a cigarette. It's like, that's the line in her song. I just butchered that line so bad. But it's like, took a pill in Ibiza, like the time of like electronic dance was very much like, let's put somebody in a location. Let's put somebody in their element. What I'm getting at is with songs like this and bringing back references by utilizing previous song titles or names that get referenced before, there is a nostalgia to that. There is a camaraderie. I see. And I love that. Like, as a writer myself, I'm always trying to be like, what can I do to pay homage? Because at the end of the day, as songwriters, we're not just forming something out of nowhere. Like, I'm heavy in my writing right now, and in order to get inspired, I'm picking artists that I'm diving into heavily, where I'm like, I want to understand their structure, their development, their purpose, how they got to where they got to in recording and mixing and mastering. So this album in particular, especially with this last listen just now, I feel a sense of connection with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hell
as a writer.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you just said about that particular song. The melody is so addictive. You mentioned even before we started recording, like, how much it gets stuck in your head, right?
Yeah, that one. Like, it's a banger.
Yeah.
Other ones that you asked me that I liked. Fourth Day Prayer. I mean, that's it. Whew, that one's heavy.
Yeah.
Persephone, High Brazil. Those are some of my favorites. I loved, loved Montreal. It was like asking home for permission to miss it. Like that concept of I feel like with Pittsburgh, it'll always be home to me. Do I always miss it? No, I don't. I leave we talk about this too because we're both football fans. My connection to home is when the Steelers play.
Yeah.
And it takes me back to a place where I'm like, man, I feel like at home again.
Yeah.
But I don't always want to I don't always want to visit Pittsburgh. I haven't been there in like 7 years, and it's nothing against the city. It's nothing against my friends or family. Sometimes it's just, it's heavy to go home.
Yeah.
It's a lot to go home. And we'll talk about this when later when we talk about what we've been up to. But I just went back to Mariah's, hometown where she was born and grew up for at least her first handful of years in Kentucky. And like, there's such a sense, I just love nostalgia so much. And I just love, there's a feeling in the air when you go somewhere sacred to somebody else, So to bring that back into Allison Russell's music, that there's that sense of home. Yeah. So like what she said, like what I was saying before, and I did point this out while we were listening to it just now. All of the Women, song "All of the Women," reminds me of the album by Earle Burnside. "Wish I Was in Heaven Sitting Down." My mom bought that at the Virgin CD store down here. No, it was at the House of Blues merch store. After we had dinner at House of Blues when we were down here visiting for like a vacation. My mom got Earle Burnside's album, and that was in rotation. And just the way the movement of the song it's almost like she's talking to you. Earle Burnside had this way of like, you can picture him just sitting in a chair and telling you about his stories, man. Yeah. I'm just here living my life. And then he's like playing guitar, and then he sings it and breaks your heart. And then he like comes back, he's like, I'm just sitting here drinking a beer, There's an element with what Allison's doing where she has that like power behind what she's saying in her words and the way she's singing talking it. Yeah. Singing it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, those are some of my biggest, like, in terms of the songs and the music. I don't know. What about you? Like, which ones are?
Well, I want to, similar, and I want to dive into a couple that you mentioned because, like, one of the things about Montreal that it leads off the record, right, and she kind of comes in with this really beautiful, French. Starts off in French, and then like she kind of is like, dreamily singing at first, right? And I can imagine if in her life at the time, growing up in Montreal, enduring the abuse that she did, that there must have been a dreamlike quality to certain things, and the reality of her life and how she talks about this quite a bit, and it captures it in this song, how Montreal like took her in, how it was. I was telling her, like, in the interview in the Marinade, we were talking about, like, because I've only been to Montreal once, and I went there for like 4 days, and I felt completely in love with it. Like, if it wasn't so damn cold and it was easier to move to Canada from America, I would go there in a heartbeat. Yeah, it is there's pianos on the corners, just like sitting out. There's like in boxes. You can just open the door and you play. People are just playing piano. There's jazz everywhere. There's all these cool little cafes and bars and restaurants everywhere, all over the city. Everyone's friendly. I felt completely head over heels for it. And so she talks about how, like, here she is enduring this incredible abuse, this awful abuse, and yet she had refuges. She would sleep in cemeteries, right? There were 24-hour cafes.
I'm sorry, that's heavy as fuck.
It's fucking heavy, dude.
That's real heavy.
She's running away from abuse, and she has to sleep in a cemetery. I mean, and to think about, again, speaking to the joy and the hope that she radiates to this day. Every time you see a performance of hers, or me having the great fortune of meeting her in person, she radiates hope and positivity and love. Yeah. And
you can see it.
Yeah, and she was sleeping in cemeteries, to try to get away from the pain. And like, it really struck me to think about finding the beauty in such pain, that she's able to go back and write this love letter to Montreal despite all that went on there. You know, I think a lot of times when I look back at the places where I did endure some sort of hardship, I don't like going back to those places. You know, I mean, as much as I love my hometown of Ocala, I don't like going back there because there's a lot of stuff I don't want to revisit, and I revisit it on every corner. And yet she feels this like deep love for it, you know?
Yeah.
My song about Ocala starts, God, I hate this town.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like her song about Montreal is very different. And I know Montreal is a lot cooler than Ocala.
Yeah.
But still, it's just like the pain that she endured, she's able to find this beauty. So that really stood out to me on that particular song.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's I can't help but think, 20 years ago, I got on a plane, said bye to my childhood home, my childhood friends all through school, never moved. And I got on a plane and said goodbye to all of it to start a completely new life down here when I was 15 with my parents, and that's a pretty big, that's a big life shift. And I feel like to some degree with what you're saying, it's easy to kind of compartmentalize your home and like where you're from, and you can use it as a card whenever you're ready, because you've earned that right. Like, to be from Pittsburgh, it's like you've earned the right to say that you are a Yinzer or you are from Pittsburgh, because I take a lot of pride in being from Pittsburgh. And even if you're from even if you moved because it was cold or because it smelled bad or because you were in a certain part of town that might have been a little questionable, maybe you're on South Side down at the bars every night and it wasn't healthy for you. Either way.
When are you taking me to South Side, buddy?
Oh, we got to go. That is wild. It's a wild time up there in good old South Side downtown. But I think that's what's cool about Pittsburgh in general is we've talked about this before. You're like, everybody leaves Pittsburgh. It's like, yeah, but all those people still carry Pittsburgh with them like it's their home. Like, I will always call Pittsburgh home. I think maybe Allison still feels that way because it's like a badge. It's like wearing the logo on your shoulder, being like, I've went through this. This is my life. I went through this hardship. If I don't speak up about it, I'm not helping somebody else. And I admire that so much.
Yeah.
Like, I admire that greatly. You did mention Allison starting off with singing French lyrics. What is your thought, just in general and with this album, take it as you will, of mixing languages in albums or in music and song? What's your take? What are your thoughts on this particular, the way that Allison does it, and how it might be done on other records?
I love this question.
I've been holding on to it.
Yeah, I love this question. So I'm a big fan of mixing languages, especially and it usually happens in this context, right?
Right.
Where now her situation is maybe different than somebody else, where Montreal, they speak both English and French, right?
Yeah,
so she
sure.
grew up speaking both, and she's comfortable in both worlds. So it only makes sense that her record is going to include both French and English. I really like it when a writer is comfortable in both, but the thing about language, right, is the idea that, like, sometimes the thing you're trying to say, you can't say it effectively in one language, but you can say it in another language.
Or it might sound more beautiful in that other language too.
Right.
Like, it might be more poetic. It might hit you in a different way if I say Je t'aime Montreal.
Yeah.
Rather than I love you Montreal.
Right. And she's right. She's directly speaking
that's
to.
what she's saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's like speaking directly to Montreal.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's incredibly beautiful that if you're addressing the city, that you're speaking in its native tongue, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'm a big believer in blending generally. I think she does it better than just about anybody.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan. Your thoughts?
Yeah. My first thought is it sometimes throws me off. Because I think too literal on the words itself, where I will get lost in almost treat it like another line of music, like it's another instrument now. And that's not me being ignorant of the fact that it's another language, and I can typically tell which language it is, or I can feel the emotion, especially in like opera or
Flamenco.
yes, like you can hear the emotion in the music and the voice. The voice is so powerful in conveying emotion and the point of the story that you don't necessarily need to know the lyrics all the time.
Yeah.
But it is helpful. But like you said, whenever it sounds way better in another language, or it drives the point home even further, because in Montreal, doesn't Allison say like heartbreak a lot in French? I looked it up, and that was like the big word that stood out the most, was like heartbreak and home. Not in the same lines, but like that was very much the point of what I think she was saying in that song. And so, yeah, I think it's really powerful. It can be used in a way that might not connect with everybody, but I think that's our own ignorance of not really being able to like take the time to, actually look up the lyrics. So I did that with this. I was like, you know what? Like, I really want to commit to knowing what these songs are about. So I should look up the French lyrics so I know.
Yeah. There's a Gabino Iglesias book up there.
Oh, wow.
And Gabino Iglesias writes in English and Spanish.
Okay.
So, like, my Spanish is not good at all.
Mine's bad. I can hear it sometimes.
Yeah, if I'm around Spanish speakers after a while, I'll pick it up. I'll at least understand it. I can't speak it very well at all. But it's kind of a nice challenge. Like, he'll just pop in a paragraph that is in Spanish, and I'll try to decipher it based on my limited Spanish, and then if I can't get the gist of it, then I'll look it up. Okay. And I just think that's a healthy exercise.
Yeah,
anyway,
it is.
Like, it's just a good thing to get that exposure.
Exercise your mind.
Yeah, and just to make that effort. So, yeah, to sum it up, I love it when artists do that, and I think she does it masterfully here. And I think in the context of this album, since it is her processing the trauma that happened in Montreal, it would be difficult for her to really do full justice to all of this if she didn't dip into that, right? Sure. Because this is part of the dichotomy of Montreal in general, right? Is that it is both English and French, and it's important to be able to communicate in the way that she can most effectively communicate, and sometimes that might be English and sometimes that might be French.
Yeah, and I think I agree, and I think that she also conveys what she's saying. It's just such a beautiful way. Like, it's so heavy on the storytelling, and I almost wonder like what the mixes sounded like. Like, I really wanted to hear like it's like when I was hearing it, I was like, it's so masterfully done. Like, the final tracks, I mean, they're beautiful in the way they are, and they blend so well together. But I would bet that they didn't have to stretch far from the mixes. When you have a natural mix where it's like, and this is something that Thomas Wynn taught me when we were working on our album, it's like when you have a strong mix, it's way easier to have a better master. I mean, that goes without saying,
sure,
right?
It makes sense, yeah.
But when you take, even before the mixing, if you give them the most solid work that you can do naturally, and then literally pick line by line, and then give the mixing engineer that, and they're able to be like, wow, I really didn't have to do a whole lot because it's so strong as it is. I just had to move some of the volume levels and the little touch of this, little touch of that. I would guess with Outside Child that she didn't have to stray too far from what they really created in the studio. And a lot of it is because the storytelling is so prominent.
Yeah.
And that's where the most time was spent on these songs. And it's not taking away from the musicianship. There's a flow and beautiful traditional sounds, blues tones, gospel tones. It's so soulful. There's, we talked about the sea shanty, factor, that there's like a yo-ho song where it feels like we're stuck out in the waters and it's, murky and scary out there. there is such a flow with it, with the music, but it's not like we're sitting here listening to a Pink Floyd album where you're going to get your mind blown by crazy guitars and crazy drums. The drive is really as a songwriter.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, me
so
too.
That's a big thing for me. It's like, that was what I was getting to. It's like sometimes the simplicity of an album is good enough.
Yeah.
And I think, I think there are plenty of artists out there who don't look at it that way, who need more. But if a song is strong enough just in the song itself, there's no need to add a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, man. You mentioned High Brazil that I wanted to talk about as well.
Yes.
I like that little. That's the part of the record that's High Brazil kicks off side B, and I really like that section of the record that gets kind of mystical. Because one of the things that Allison is very serious about is like paying homage to ancestors and those who've come before.
Right.
And in her case, you're talking about people who were in bondage. You're talking about people who were considered property, and she talks about that quite a bit, when she, in interviews and when she has conversations. And I think that's one of those things that, like, it's so important for us to continue to have those conversations. And there's such a concerted effort socially and politically to not have those conversations. So I'm grateful for voices like hers to really connect back to her ancestry and her roots, and to acknowledge and educate about what hardships people went through generations before, and how that intergenerational trauma, as she would put it, impacts folks today.
Yeah.
And I think High Brazil does a really good job of sort of really paying respects to her ancestors and kind of reaching out to them is what it feels like when I hear that song. And it's just such a beautifully, the poetry of it is carried along so beautifully by the music, as is the rest of the record, but it stands out to me on High Brazil. And I told her that when I had a chance to interview her. I was like, man, I listened to this one more time right before we talked, and there's something about that particular song, and I think it's the, sort of the mystical element of it, and that leads into The Hunters, which is another kind of mystical song. There's a moment there at the beginning of side B that goes from this kind of mystical, sort of spiritual realm, and then gets into all of the women and carrying through into Joyful Motherfuckers, which is like, to me, that back end of the record becomes a very hopeful part, right?
Yes.
All of the women is an acknowledgement of like,
sure.
it's an acknowledgement of like the incredible hardships that women face,
Right.
and the danger that women face just by being women. And that leads us into, though, a whole bunch of hopeful thoughts. And that side B, I love the whole record, but I love the way side B is structured sequentially. We talk about sequence a lot, how it starts off with the mystical, and then it kind of acknowledges the present as connected to the past, right? Past is High Brazil and The Hunters, going into sort of the present with all of the women, and then the rest of the record, as I hear it, is like starts to go toward the hope of the future.
It definitely does. Like I said earlier, it's like a light. It's so light, and it's like the content itself is really deep and dark at times, and heavy, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. The present is more beautiful when you look on the past as just appreciating it for what it is, rather than regretting it or wishing you had better, or wishing you had gone through, less trauma, to lean into it and say, here's my tattoo of this hardship, and then to show that there's hope at the end of the tunnel. It really does. It really does wrap up the album beautifully. And that kind of brings me to my big question for you. The moment on your episode, where one of the coolest things that I've ever seen happen naturally on a podcast episode occurred, where, and I want you to give kind of the rundown and what you're like, what was that like, of when, you're sitting there and Allison Russell is told by her partner that she's Grammy nominated, like, 7 times?
3 times.
3 times. Okay.
She's since
I
won.
mean, 7 deserved. You know,
She
like,
has subsequently won a Grammy.
and that's
So,
that's
yeah.
awesome. But
Yeah, yeah.
like,
for a different her latest record.
right, and just like take me through, take me and our audience through like what that whole experience was like, because you were already enamored with this album.
Yeah.
You already let Allison know just how much you appreciate the album and that it's one of your all-time favorites.
Yeah.
And it hits close to home. You can't wait to talk to her about all these things. Like, you really did set yourself up. And you had this great conversation, though quick, it was still great.
Yeah.
And then that moment hits. And for me, I'll never forget seeing it on social media and you telling me about it, just being blown away. So give us the rundown. Like, what was that like? What were you feeling in that?
Yeah, I love this question. I mean, again, context is really important. Like,
Sure.
I was still living with my now ex, and things were going well with us, and I had just gotten this really good job, and like life was just kind of like flowing in the right direction. You know, it felt like, even though the pandemic was still raging, this is 2021, so things are still really tough. You know, conundrum. Hey,
Hey,
bud.
man.
Hey, bud.
Hey, dude.
Leave it.
Dude.
Conundrum. Leave it. Leave it. Thank you.
Like, here, remember when I had something here?
Oh,
I'll
poor
never
buddy.
forget it.
He's got bad allergies.
Oh,
Poor guy.
sorry, I didn't mean
Fucking
to.
gets a rash around his dick.
It's the worst.
Poor
I didn't mean
guy.
to cut you off there. He was just really going ham.
Yeah. But anyway, things were going great.
Things going great. You're in a good situation.
Things are going great.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's still pandemic time.
but it's still
too.
pandemic time,
Yeah.
and like things are still weird,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of social unrest still happening. But I did feel like there was a reckoning happening with when it comes to race specifically, and there were some really productive conversations that were going on, and I was just so in love with this record. I was so excited to talk to her. I was shooting my shot with everybody, right? Because I was at home.
Hell yeah.
You know,
What
so
else
I
are
was
you gonna
like,
do?
yeah, I had a lot of time.
To think about how ambitious we were
Yeah.
like for me as an artist, it was
Yeah.
like, man, that time was a time where I felt like I was like just trying to stay above water.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, and for me, as like the beauty of doing the podcast at that time is it shifted my perspective.
Yeah.
So I just didn't really do Zoom before that. Most of us didn't.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't even like doing phone interviews prior to the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit,
Now it's like all you do.
yeah, like everybody
all you
starts.
can do.
Yeah, everybody
Yeah.
starts saying yes.
It's hard.
And then everybody's at home, so Brian Fallon's saying yes.
Yeah, like why not?
You know,
Yeah.
like Daryl Scott saying yes.
Yep.
And Todd Snyder saying yes.
Yep.
Right. So I'm getting all these like Legends of Roots music on, and
What else are they gonna do?
right. And then Allison says yes, and I'm like, fuck yeah! I'm so
Yeah.
excited. I've been devouring this record, and then we had, you know, as cool of a conversation as we possibly could have had,
Right.
and we get to the end, and I can tell like she's locked into my question.
Yeah.
And it's a great answer. But you can start to see her eyes in the video, and I could feel it, right? Where she's
There's like an attention shift.
yeah, attention shift, so she's distracted. And then JT Nero, her partner, comes down the stairs and announces he gets right behind her, and on the frame, he apologizes to the audience and then says, "Congratulations, you have 3 Grammy nominations."
Like,
And like I'm sitting there. So think about like the fate of this too.
right.
Is that I forget what happened, but we had to reschedule for some reason. So we'd already had a date on the calendar, had to reschedule. We start the interview. She's like 30 minutes late because she was on another interview that went long, right?
Right.
So the number of things that had to happen for us to catch that lightning in a bottle, you know, countless.
Yeah.
And I happened to have the Zoom going, and the Zoom was just right. And
Yeah.
so like the elation that I felt in that moment, I had interviewed Grammy nominees and winners before,
Sure.
but I'd never been there for the joy of some. Because the other thing you got to think about Allison's career.
Yeah.
She'd been doing this for 20 years.
Yep.
When she finally gets this due. And if you go back and listen to those Pogo records, and you listen to Our Native Daughters, and you listen to Birds of Chicago with JT, those are all great records.
Sure.
Like every single one of them, but they weren't. No Grammy consideration was happening, right?
Yeah.
And then she puts out this solo record that is so confessional and so hopeful and so painful and all these beautiful emotions and such a gorgeous collection of songs. I just felt overwhelmed to be a part of it, and I can't believe to this day it's one of the best things that's happened to me in my creative life. It's one of the most memorable moments of my life and probably always will be, because
Sure.
like even that's the first time that's ever happened to me, right? Even if it happens again, like there was that time and the joy on her face. Like the thing about Allison that, I don't know her. I've just met her a couple of times. We've corresponded online. So I know her sort of, right? We're acquainted. But I can guarantee you this, she's absolutely who you think she is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like I feel
yeah.
confident saying she is who you think she is.
She was really easy to talk to.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I remember from that episode was just how easy it was to talk with Allison. She talked to you like a normal conversation.
Well, I commented at the end to her, I re-listened today and I had forgotten about this, but just how present she was.
Yeah.
Like it was remarkable to me how present she was in the conversation.
And that actually reminds me of another episode that you had done with Caitlin Butts. I felt like Caitlin was also one where she just was very much herself.
Dude, Caitlin is the fucking coolest.
And so and I'm just connecting the two because those episodes really stood out to me with how naturally the two of them communicated and talked to you like a person rather than a journalist.
Yeah.
They were open to talking about anything, and they, for Allison to have multiple interviews, she was going to have one right after yours.
Yeah.
Promotion is real, man.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work. It can be a lot of work. So for Allison, for you to be in that moment, for that one, I mean, that's a moment that Allison will never forget.
Mm-hmm.
Like how do you forget the first time you were ever nominated for a Grammy?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I'm also in the middle of a podcast with a dude who's like super enamored and in love with my music.
Yeah.
So like, you get to share that with them now.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so beautiful. And when it first happened, I was like, man, it's not just like, not only do I think, like, man, what a viral moment, like that should like blow you up, or that should like, that should get views, because it should. I think hopefully with this episode, we can get it out there again and run it back, baby. Like, I want people to see this. So, folks online and social media, when we put this video out there again, like, give it some love, because moments like this don't happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I took away from it, was that it was so special for me to see that take place in the moment. It's so unplanned, unprecedented. It's not part of the scheduled time, allotted time. And I don't know about you, but I would trade asking one more question for that any day.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? Like, I would be like, this is all. This is it. I don't need to ask anything else.
I mean, I had another question queued up, and then I just ended it. You're not.
It was, how can you top that?
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Yeah, exactly. Like, let's end it on this the highest of notes, right?
Right. And that's it's such a cool story too. Like, it's something. I'm just a firm believer in if you can connect with the artists that you admire and follow and listen to and appreciate, and you're able to have a memorable moment with them, whether or not they remember it.
Yeah.
The fact is that made an impact on your life.
Yeah.
And I think, we often get sucked into like, oh, let me get an autograph. Oh, let me get a photo. It's like, man, just all you got to do is just say hi, big fan.
Yeah.
Like, not that the other stuff isn't great, but sometimes it can be overbearing. Mm-hmm. And the artist might not want to say hi. I just went to Badass Subs to pick up lunch for me and Mariah.
Shout out Badass Subs.
Yeah, so good. Right down the street here in the Milk District. And there was a WWE superstar just sitting out there right out front.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you say who? Do you feel comfortable saying
I don't know. No,
okay.
I don't, because like he was wearing a WWE shirt.
Oh,
but he was like talking with his girlfriend or sister or somebody, and I didn't want to interrupt. But as I was walking by, I went, "Big fan," and he like gave me a smile, and I was like, "All right," but like, you gotta be careful. It's all about timing.
Yeah.
But I think about that often with, like, again, John Moreland. Like,
yeah.
All it took was for me to just introduce myself,
yeah,
to leave an impression,
yeah,
and to know that, like, down the road he actually might need me, and he did, to jump on shows. Like, it's all about the connection. I think music is such a connector. What I'm finding, just as like my summary overall, is like listening to these records with you, it's creating like a buzz, something that's working. I take in a lot of my music listening on my own. If I find a song that I like, I'll share it with Mariah. But typically when Mariah and I are listening to music, we are diving into like deep stuff, like classic rock, like older songs. Because we just want to like kind of escape, and if we both find songs that we'll like, then we'll share them. And usually like it goes from there. But my point is like, I don't really ever sit with a record and listen to it with somebody. And I feel like this act is really something that everybody should start trying, because you're taking in music differently.
Yeah.
And I'm finding so much more just from this listen alone, even after listening to Outside Child 5 times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And really, really doing a quick deep dive, because this is a quicker turnaround.
Yeah.
Our last episode was only like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So just all this to say that like I'm really enjoying this new format, and this album deserves all the attention that we're giving it.
Yeah.
I don't know that if we had done the previous format, if it would have been giving this album the justice it needed, especially with the heavy topics.
Yeah.
And the way that the music is built. Like that's in summary, that was my biggest takeaway, is like this album really deserves all the attention and praise that it gets.
I don't have anything to add to that. That's perfectly said. The only thing that I would add, well, I do have one thing to add, I guess. And that is just that, I think it has, you and I have grown closer and closer and closer over the years.
Oh yeah.
But like this, I feel like there's a connection that you and I are making, despite how close we are.
We're finding a connection. Yeah. I think there's definitely to actually sit there and just not really talk a lot, talk a little bit, because you don't just want to sit there in total silence. And I have a habit of getting carried away with conversation, so I just have to pay attention to it. Like towards the end there, I went, so how's it going? Like, how's your life going? I'm like, fuck, shit. I gotta hold on a sec. That's just my attention, lack of attention. But yeah, man. I mean, that was my biggest praise for this album. Again, was the storytelling and just how beautiful it is and strong it is from start to finish.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. Great choice.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed it. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Let's talk about first of all, just what's going on with you, man.
I've been still busy.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that things slow down here a little bit. I just got back from a trip with Mariah over Memorial Day weekend. We went up to Nashville. It was an easy stop from where we plan on going, and we figured we'll hang out in Nashville as bookmarks, as bookends. So at the beginning we stayed in Nashville, and at the end of the trip we stayed in Nashville. But we took a rental car and drove out to Prestonsburg, Kentucky, deep in the holler of Eastern Kentucky, where Mariah was born and raised. Met some of her family that I hadn't met yet. They took us up into the mountains. I mean, like into the hills in a Ford truck. It was quite the experience. We went down into Loretta Lynn's childhood home, Butcher Holler, if you are familiar. Went down there, which was really, really cool. And then when we left Kentucky, well, I should also say that we stayed at a Super 8 motel.
Barely survived.
And barely survived it. I'm sure, like, if you ever want to talk to me about this Super 8 motel experience in Prestonsburg, Kentucky, I'm happy to talk to you about it in person. Basically, I did not know that there are still smoking and non-smoking hotels out there.
Blew my mind when you told me that.
And also just, if half of your hotel burned down, maybe you shouldn't be open.
Probably not a good idea.
Probably not the best idea. I'm just saying,
Till maybe the renovations.
Yeah, and maybe I just shouldn't tell that to the front desk clerk, because she was not happy with me. They gave us a smoking room, when we requested a non-smoking room, as one does in
You
2020.
booked a non-smoking
in
room,
2025.
you didn't request.
They said we requested it. Anyway, I don't want to get into it because I'm just going to get all heated. Just know that we got out of the Super 8 motel. Jason Isbell was right.
Yeah, you
I don't want to die in a Super 8 motel. So that was an experience in and of itself.
Yeah.
But Kentucky was really beautiful. The mountains were gorgeous. And then we drove over to East Tennessee. We have a family friend who is building a recording studio in the mountains of Rock Island, Tennessee. Okay. And so we are helping him out. Trying to get maybe get involved in the long run. And just might be a cool place to venture into in the long run, like, as a second home, or I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how things go. But yeah, so went there. It was absolutely beautiful. And then we went back to Nashville for the last night, hung out, went to dinner, walked around Nashville all the next day, went to Carter Vintage Guitars, my favorite stop, went to Arnold's, John Prine's restaurant. Well, I don't know if it's his, but it's like his. There are pictures of him everywhere, and it's like home cooked Southern style food. Have you been?
I've never been.
You're going up there, right?
Yeah, I'll go up. I'll go when I'm
go
up
to
there.
Arnold's.
Yeah, I'm
you
leaving.
have to go to
this
Arnold's
week. I'll go up there.
It is so good. I bought some new cowboy boots, which I'm real stoked about.
Cool.
Real stoked about. So that trip was fun. We got back a few days ago. What else? I went to see AC/DC in concert.
Hell yeah, you
Holy
did.
shit, that was the best show I'd ever seen. I can't believe that 70-something-year-old dudes are still rocking like that. Like Angus Young, man. That guy still throws it down.
Yeah.
It was very impressive. And then other than that, I'm writing music. I just finished a new song. I shared some of it on my Instagram recently. It's called Wandering On.
Hell yeah.
I was playing a recording yesterday for Mariah, and she was like, "What song is that?" And I was like, "It's my new song." She goes, "You wrote that?" I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Damn, babe, sometimes I forget that, like, you can write a song." I was like, "Well, thanks." She goes, "I don't mean that to be, like, harsh or negative. It's just we have so much life we're so busy all the time." She's like, "When you write a song, like, it's got something. I think it has something." So I feel good, and I always love getting a response like that because, like, it means that I'm onto something.
Hell yeah.
In doing so, I've made a playlist of music of artists that I'm, like, paying attention to, doing some research on. The big ones are Bob Seger, first and foremost. I'm just doing a deep dive into all of his songs because I feel like there are elements there that I really want to, like, understand and try and practice, and band elements, of having instrumentation in certain ways. So he's the biggest one. I can share the playlist with you personally.
Yeah, I love that.
The rest of it's pretty good. There's some other names like Drayton Farley's on there.
Oh, he's been on Marinade.
Coulterwall, Four in the Strange, Springsteen, of course, Tom Petty. Allison Russell now is on there too.
Awesome.
To be honest. So, yeah, that's what I'm up to. Just enjoying my time. Looking forward to the summer and hanging out.
Cool.
Yeah, man. How about you?
Man, I've been busy. I mean, I've had a lot of time on my hands, so it's summertime. My new job doesn't start until end of July.
Congrats, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited. So I've just been getting up and doing creative work pretty much every day. I mean, I give myself a weekend and stuff, but I get up and I work on this show. I work on the Marinade. I do some writing. So I recently published a review of Kelsey Walden's Every Ghost on marinadepodcast.com. Yep. I've been trying to write more reviews and working on one of S.G. Goodman's forthcoming record, Planning by the Signs. And then I released an episode with Kelsey Walden, the return of Kelsey Walden. Last time we spoke was back in 2019 when she opened for John Prine at the Bob Carr Theater.
I'd remember.
So that was a pretty special moment. And, man, we had a great conversation.
That's awesome.
And then I recently sat down to record with my buddy Preston Canavan, who is like the most hilarious comedian doing it right now, in my opinion. And I didn't hit record. So,
well, to be fair, it's a new setup.
it is a new setup.
You're learning,
I'm learning.
but
I
you double
fucked it
checked
up.
on this episode.
It's definitely recording right now.
You did that.
But that's the bad news. The good news is if you go to patreon.com/marinade podcast, I did get a video of the recording.
Nice.
So you can watch the whole video, unedited, hour and a half. It's hilarious. He's so funny. There's so many organic moments that I don't want to spoil. You can either subscribe for $2 a month, or you can just buy it outright on patreon.com. So if you just want to pay $5,
that's awesome.
Don't want to commit to a monthly subscription, do that. And I'm going to leave on Monday or Tuesday. It depends. I ordered a bag for this new setup that comes tomorrow. So I might stick around town one more day and then head out on I've been calling it my second annual Grounded Summer Tour.
Yeah, you went on a big trip last year.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
but this is actually the third one.
Oh, right.
I just didn't get all the way to Kentucky where I'm from.
Right.
3 years ago. Last year, 2 years ago. Last year, I made it all the way to Kentucky. This year, I'm going to spend pretty much a month on the road. So I'm going to head up to cover Bonnaroo for the third year in a row. Go see everybody at the farm. And I'm going to go into Kentucky, kind of do what I did last year and get back to my roots. And then go back through. I'm not staying at a Super 8.
Yeah, don't.
I'm going to go into like Virginia and see my dear friend Tanner Bailey. Come on down, see my uncle. Like, it's going to be awesome.
That's great.
So I'm going to bring my recording equipment with me, try to record with some folks at Bonnaroo, try to catch up with some folks in Nashville. And then the other records that I want to quickly mention that some of them aren't released yet, but I've had the pleasure of listening to. The forthcoming Hayes Carl record, which comes out in August, I've been listening to. I'll probably mention that again later on in the year.
Hell yeah, we were listening to it as I came in.
As you walked in, yeah.
Real good.
Grace Potter just released a record that's really, really, really good. Kelsey Walden's new record, Every Ghost, is really, really good. That comes out on June 20th. And then the S.G. Goodman record also comes out on June 20th. I would highly recommend pre-ordering all of those records I just mentioned because you're going to love them. And then the last thing I've been getting down on that I cannot get enough of is the Alan Sparhawk Trampled by Turtles collaboration.
I need to listen to that.
Man, I love Alan Sparhawk. I love Low the Band. And I love Trampled by Turtles. And, you know, they're both Minnesota folks.
Yeah.
But sonically, there's no clear overlap. And then when you hear them together, you're like, oh, this
That's
fucking
cool.
makes sense. Yeah.
That's real cool.
So, yeah, man, that's it.
Anderson East's new album, Worthy. Go check that one out. That's the one I've listened to the most recent listen. Watch House has a new album.
Yep.
There are a handful, yeah. Grace Potter, looking forward to that. Ward Davis has a live sessions album, the Bordello Sessions. What was the other one? There's a band called Moonrisers that I've been paying attention to.
Cool.
They got an album called Harsh and Exciting.
Okay.
From, I believe, Easy Eye Sound.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's who produced it. So, yeah, man, good episode.
Hell yeah. So what do we got next?
So the next episode will be Sunny Side Up by Paolo Nutini. I hope I said his name right Paolo Nutini.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a cool name. Big
artwork.
fan of Paolo. He has that song New Shoes. You ever heard that one? Hey, I got some new shoes.
Oh, yeah,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, so he's got, he's got a poppy side to him, but this album, man, it goes deep. I can't wait to talk to you about the one song, folks, when you go to listen to this album. Pay attention to Tricks of the Trade. Overall.
Cool.
Beautiful song. But yeah, that's what we're going to do next.
I'm excited for it. He's one of those artists that like when it comes on, I go, oh, this is really cool. I should dive into this.
Listen to
you
more.
know? And then I don't.
So that's what happened
It's going to be fun, yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about Tricks of the Trade in particular. It's a good story. I was listening to it with Mariah when we first started dating.
Oh, cool.
And it just, it's a beautiful song. And I was like, who is this? And we'll talk about that more. But yeah, I was like, oh, it's Paolo Nutini. All right. I should give him more of a chance. So I got the album. It's
cool,
a really
man.
beautiful album.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, that'll be next. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you all so much for listening.
Yeah, we've been really enjoying the new format and how we're doing it. We hope you are too. We've been getting good feedback.
Yep.
Keep talking to us and keep listening to your records and send some recommendations our way. We're always open to hearing new music. We've talked about having some guests soon, so we're working on some guests here who will be bringing a record for us to listen to and talk with them about it. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Don't forget to follow Jordan Foley on all the socials.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget to follow Life's Greatest Hits on all the socials.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget to follow the Marinade podcast on all the socials.
Yep.
And then also Jason Earle Music on Instagram if you want to catch my musical exploits. I'm bringing my guitar with me on the road, so there might be some more.
When are you gonna? Here's what I want.
All right.
I'm challenging you.
Okay.
I want you to film yourself playing a song, not live, like at a show, like right on.
Oh, like here?
Like or on the road. Bring your guitar.
Oh, okay.
Are you bringing your guitar?
Yeah, I'm bringing my guitar.
Bring your guitar. Set your phone up. Give me a clip.
Okay.
I want to hear some of it on Jason Earle Music.
Okay, deal.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you so much.
Hold him accountable.
Until next time, thank you for sharing your life's greatest hits with us.
See y'all.